How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am back for another Golden Age Spotlight video. Now, what I didn't realize until the other day is that my last video was my 100th video on this channel. Yay for me! Now, this being my 101st video and a Golden Age Spotlight review, it's going to be a very special Golden Age Spotlight review. It is going to be on the, what could be argued as the greatest man in the comic book world. Yes, Stan Lee did pass away just recently, and we should have a moment of silence for that. Now, Stan Lee is the man that I am going to be doing the Golden Age Spotlight review on because he was around for the Golden Age. Now, I had a chance to meet Stan Lee when he gave a speech in Springfield back in 2006, and I got 2 comic books signed. I don't have them with me. They are locked in a safe that I will never, ever, ever touch because they are far more valuable now than they ever were before. So let's go ahead and get this Golden Age Spotlight video started with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Stan the Man Lee. I'm no prophet, but I'm guessing that comic books will always be strong. I don't think anything can really beat the pure fun and pleasure of holding a magazine in your hand, reading the story on the paper, being able to roll it up and put it in your pocket, reread it again later, show it to a friend, carry it with you, toss it on a shelf, collect them, have a lot of magazines lined up, and read them again as a series. I think young people have always loved that. I think they always will. Stan Lee, May 2000. Stan Lee, Stanley Martin Lieber's first appearance was on December 28th in 2012. He was born in Manhattan, New York. His parents, Roman-born Jewish immigrant parents' name were Selina and Jack Lieber. He also had a younger brother named Larry Lieber. When he was a kid, Stan Lee enjoyed books and movies that were particularly revolved around Errol Flynn. Later, in his teens, his family would be living in an apartment building in the Bronx. Stan Lee and his brother would share a bedroom while his parents would sleep on a fold-out couch. Stan Lee would attend DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. In his youth, he enjoyed writing and dreamed of one day writing the next great American novel. He had many different part-time jobs, such as writing obituaries and press releases for the National Tuberculosis Center. He would deliver sandwiches and was an office boy for a trouser manufacturer. He would sell subscriptions for the New York Herald newspaper. He graduated early at the age of 16 and a half in 1939, and he joined the WTA Federal Theater Project. In 1939, Stan Lee would be hired as an assistant at Timely Comics with the help of his uncle. He had a number of duties back then as an assistant, such as keeping the inkwells filled, because that's how they inked comics back then, proofreading, erasing pencil mark from finished pages, and fetching lunch. Stan Lee would make his comic book debut with Captain America number 3 in 1941. This is when Stan Lee would change his name to Stan Lee. He didn't want his name associated with comics, for one day when he would write the great American novel, no one would know that he was also the comic book writer. In 1941, he would come up with a number of characters, some of which would be used in Marvel comic books later down the line. He would create the Destroyer, Jack Frost, and Father Time. In 1941, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby both left Timely Comic Books, which would later evolve into Marvel Comic Books, and Stan Lee was named interim editor at just 19 years old, but he did seem to have a good knack for business. He would retain this job until 1942. In 1942, Stan Lee joined the Army to help out with the war efforts. He was trained to install telephone lines, but when they realized he had a knack for writing, he was given the job of playwright, and he would join the Signal Corps Training Film Division. He worked with people who would become famous artists, such as Charles Adams, the creator of the Addams Family, Frank Capra, who would go on to make Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and It's a Wonderful Life, and Theodore Dreiser, who would be known later on as Dr. Seuss. He would serve in the military until 1945, when he would go back to his job as the interim editor at Timely Comics. At the Emerald City Comic Con in 2017, Stan Lee received a lifetime membership to the Signal Corps Regimental Association and has an honorary membership to the 2nd Battalion of the 3rd Infantry Regiment. In the 1950s and early 60s, DC started reviving superheroes, bringing them back into their popularity, such as their storylines with Flash and the Justice League. The publisher of Marvel, Martin Goodman, wanted Lee to make new superheroes, and this was at the time when Lee was thinking about making a career change, and his wife told him, "Do it your way. The worst they can do is fire you, and you want to quit anyways." Lee went on to redefine the superhero archetype, making the new heroes in a sense more vulnerable and relatable. Some of them would be having bad tempers, bicker amongst themselves, being bored, or having an existential crisis. The first superheroes Lee would create under the new archetype would be the Fantastic Four, and with their popularity he would go on to produce a cavalcade of new superheroes. With Kirby he would create Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, and the X-Men. With Bill Everett he would go on to create Daredevil, and with Steve Ditko he would create Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, Marvel's most popular character to date. All of these superheroes would live in the same shared universe, and born from this would be the Avengers. The Avengers being born would even resurrect superheroes such as Submariner and Captain America. Stan Lee would go on to create some of the most critically acclaimed storyline in comic books, even standing up to the Common Code Authority and publishing some comic books without their approval, and because of this, it caused them to loosen their codes and allowed the comic books to be more socially relevant and apply more to people's lives. In 1972, Stan Lee would assume the role of publisher of Marvel Comics, where he would take a step back from creating. The last two comics that he worked on was Amazing Spider-Man 110 and Fantastic Four 125, both in 1972. In the 1970s, Stan Lee would appear at Comic-Cons from around the U.S. and start a couple new projects for Marvel. In 1977, he teamed up for the last time with Jack Kirby to produce Spider-Man for the newspaper comic strips. In 1978, he and Marvel would put out the Marvel Fireside Book series, which would be Marvel's first graphic novels, and he would create the She-Hulk in 1980. Starting in 1981, Stan would develop Marvel TV and movie properties, making cameos and appearance in Marvel films and adaptations. Also, occasionally returning to work on Silver Surfer projects. He was briefly president of Marvel, but found it to be more about the numbers and financing and not enough about the creativity, so he would step down from that position. In 2000, following the success of Fox's X-Men and Sony's Spider-Man, Stan Lee sued Marvel for not paying him the royalties from the characters. Marvel claimed that Stan Lee did not own the superhero since he was an employee at Marvel at the time, and they owned him and he didn't. But they would find out that in 1990, Marvel did agree to pay 10% of future profits, so they settled or pay future profits to music, movies, and TV adaptations, so they would settle with Stan Lee out of court. Throughout the remaining years, Stan Lee would go on to do a slew of other projects where he would create heroes of his own, do some made-for-TV movies, make some more comic books, do more work for Marvel, and for a time did some work for DC. He would do a number of cameo appearances in the Marvel movies that were later owned by Disney. On June 6, 2017, Stan Lee's wife of 96 years, Jonah, died from complications of a stroke. She was 95 years old. On November 12, 2018, at the age of 95, Stan Lee would make his final appearance, topping off his 95-issue run. Well, I probably could have gone on for about another 2 hours talking about Stan Lee. I don't think anybody else besides me would want to hear me talk about Stan Lee for another 2 hours. I'm going to go over some of the appearances that he's made in cartoons, comic books, TVs, and movies, and then give you some trivia before I finally wrap this thing up. So, let's go over some of that now. Stan Lee has appeared in a number of comic books over the years. I'm not going to name every one of them. He appeared on the cover of Fantastic Four number 10. This would be his first appearance in 1963. Stan Lee and the entire Marvel bullpen appeared in What If number 11, which was what if the Marvel bullpen had become the Fantastic Four in 1978. It's one of my personal favorite comics that I own. He appeared in Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos number 100 in 1972. He also appeared in Daredevil Volume 2 number 8 in 1998. He was one of the mourners that was at Karen Page's funeral. He also appeared in Avengers Annual number 1 in 2006. He was the preacher for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones's marriage. Now, I'm not going to name all of the movies Stan Lee has starred in. There's way too many, and I don't remember all the rules from these roles that he played in these movies, but I'm going to name some of the ones I think should be named that he's been in. Stan Lee has been in both Hulk movies, the 2003 and the 2008 version, also Iron Man in 2008, Captain America, Thor, and the Avengers, Captain Thor being 2011, and Avengers 2012. X-Men 1, X-Men 3, X-Men Apocalypse, and the Deadpool movie. X-Men 1 and 3 being 2000 and 2006. Apocalypse and Deadpool, I think they both came out in 2016. He was also in No Good Deeds, which was a short film that appeared right before the movie Logan. He was edited out for the theatrical version, but was put back in for the YouTube version in 2017. He was in both of the two original Fantastic Four movies in 2005 and 2007, and he's been in all 6 Spider-Mans. I'm not going to name them all. It's the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland movies. Stan Lee has had many TV appearances as well. These are some of the stuff where he was doing live action. He was in the Hulk movie, the original Lou Ferrigno Hulk, where the Hulk was on trial. He was on the History Channel and Stan Lee's Superheroes, a sci-fi channel, Who Wants to Be a Superhero. He was a bus driver in Heroes. He was on Chuck Season 5. He's been in all of the Netflix Marvel shows, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, and The Punisher. And he's also made a role on Hulu for their show, The Runaways. He's made many cartoon appearances over the years. He hosted the Marvel Action Hour, which was Iron Man and Fantastic Four. He would run the intros for that. He also appeared in 2 episodes of the Fantastic Four. He appeared in the season finale of the 1990 Spider-Man cartoon. He appeared in Stripperella, Simpsons, Robot Chicken, which I don't care if they're using live action figures, that's a cartoon. And he was in the Big Hero 6 TV show and the movie. Stan Lee has also had some video game appearances. He was in Spider-Man, the 2000 video game, and Spider-Man 2 in 2001. He appeared in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions in 2010, which is a great game. He appeared in Lego Marvel Superheroes as Stan Hulk. And then he appeared in the sequel, Lego Marvel Superheroes Avengers, where he's Stan Hulk, Iron Stan, and Stan Buster. I'm going to go over some trivia now, and even if you may know this, it doesn't make it any less trivia. Stan Lee was supposed to be in the Blade movie, but they deleted his scene before it came out. Stan Lee originally wanted Kirby to draw Spider-Man, but he didn't like the way it looked, so he went with Steve Ditko instead. Stan Lee created Stripperella. Stan Lee won the Will Eisner Award Hall of Fame in 1994 and the Jack Kirby Hall of Fame in 1995. In 2008, President Bush, W., presented Stan Lee with the American National Media of the Arts Award. Stan Lee said that if he could be any of the villains in all of his comic books, he would be Dr. Doom. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby have both been made Disney legends. Stan Lee did some comic books for DC in 2001 and 2002. Stan Lee teamed up with other writers to do the Just Imagine series, where he would reimagine Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in a very Stan Lee way. He would do this in 2001 and 2002 and have 13 issues. Stan Lee has the 2,428th star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Stan Lee's famous catchphrase, Excelsior, means ever upward. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tribute to Stan Lee. Surely his kind will never come again. I hope you enjoyed this Golden Age video. I should have some more Golden Age videos coming soon. So until next time, I'll be seeing you.